Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take a stack of sources and, well, really try to distill them into the essential knowledge you need to navigate our, let's face it, increasingly complex world.
It definitely feels that way sometimes.
Right. And today, we're diving into something pretty fundamental, a really personal yet universal quest. How do you actually forge a meaningful life? Especially when there's so much chaos, so much uncertainty all around us. We all feel it, I think. That, sometimes subtle, sometimes really overwhelming sense of being adrift, grappling with challenges without a clear compass. How do we find that guidance, that anchor?
That's exactly the core question, isn't it? And it's why today we're turning to Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. It's a book that, maybe on the surface looks like just a list of rules.
Yeah, a bit prescriptive sounding.
Right. But Peterson himself is really clear. These aren't about restrictions, actually kind of the opposite. He sees them as principles to facilitate our goals and make for fuller, freer lives. It's more about bringing to light, what you already know, tapping into that ancient wisdom, those deep human patterns.
And the way he does it is pretty unique. He doesn't just list things out, right?
No, not at all.
He weaves each rule into these stories, often really personal ones, and draws from this incredible range of fields, like everything from evolution, neuroscience, Jung, Freud.
Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, Solzhenitsyn.
Exactly. This amazing tapestry of thought.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the rules feel less like advice and more like frameworks for actually living.
Precisely. It's about recognizing these universal patterns, these deep structures that pop up again and again across cultures, across time, and then showing how they play out in our own, modern lives, our everyday struggles.
So our mission today, for you listening, is basically to be your guide through this. We're going to pull out the most important insights, try and break them down into simple, actionable steps.
And give you some solid examples, analogies, things that make it stick.
Yeah, connect it all back to the challenges you face. So by the end, hopefully, you'll have a clearer understanding and maybe some practical tools to start building that more meaningful, more resilient life. Okay, so let's start with the why. Why these rules? What led Peterson to write this? It wasn't exactly planned from the start, was it?
No, not really. It kind of grew organically. He started answering questions on Quora, that online Q&A site.
Right. I remember seeing some of those go viral.
Yeah, they got really popular. And then apparently a literary agent heard him on CBC radio. But he wasn't talking about self-help in the usual sense. He was actually criticizing the modern obsession with just pursuing happiness.
Interesting. So not about quick fixes or feeling good all the time.
Definitely not. That really goes back to his earlier work, Maps of Meaning, which is, let's be honest, a much denser, more academic book.
Very dense.
But in it, he argues pretty strongly that happiness, it's not really the right goal. It's not enough.
Okay, so what is?
He proposed that a deeper meaning was required. And that meaning, he argues, isn't found in just feeling happy, but in developing character in the face of suffering.
Wow. Okay, that's a very different take than you usually hear.
It is. And it really sets the whole philosophical backdrop for 12 Rules for Life. The book is basically his attempt to make those complex ideas accessible, to help us, map the chaos into which we are thrown at birth.
That phrase really lands, because life does often feel like being thrown into chaos, doesn't it? Like you're just trying to figure things out as you go.
Exactly. It taps into what he calls the archetypal situation. That feeling that arises whenever we face something we just don't understand. A crisis, a big life change, even just, the confusing state of the world.
We're constantly bumping up against the unknown.
Constantly. And without some kind of map, some principles, it's easy to feel lost, overwhelmed.
Which brings us straight to this core idea that runs through everything. Order and chaos. He uses the Taoist symbol a lot, right? The yin-yang.
He does. It's a really powerful metaphor for reality. These two fundamental opposing principles, chaos and order, like those intertwined serpents, black and white, always moving, always interacting.
And it's not just that they're opposites, is it? There's more to it.
Oh, definitely. Those little dots are crucial. The black dot and the white part, the white dot and the black part.
What do they signify?
They represent the possibility of transformation. So even when everything seems perfectly ordered, stable, secure, chaos can still emerge from within it. There's always a seed of the unknown.
Right.
And conversely, even in the middle of total chaos, when everything's falling apart, there's always the potential for new order to arise, for understanding to emerge. Stability has hidden instability, and catastrophe holds the seed of new structure.
Got it. So let's define those terms a bit more. What's order in Peterson's view?
He calls it the explored territory. Think of society's structures, traditions, routines, the familiar stuff.
Like your job, your family rituals.
Exactly. Your home, the warm, secure living room, or on a bigger scale, the trains that leave on time. It's the predictable, the known, the stable ground under our feet.
And chaos.
Chaos is the unknown, the unexplored territory. It's freedom, but he calls it dreadful freedom because it's overwhelming.
Right, too much possibility can be paralyzing.
Exactly. It's possibility itself, the source of ideas. It's where novelty comes from, but also where things fall apart. It's everything outside that warm living room.
Can you give us some concrete examples to make it less abstract?
Sure. He uses the tax return example. Filing your taxes, getting everything neat and tidy, that's order.
Okay, makes sense.
But then you get that letter, you're being audited. Suddenly, boom, pure chaos.
Yeah, that feeling. He says most people would rather be mugged.
He does, which sounds extreme, but it highlights how terrifying that plunge into the unknown, the unpredictable consequences of an audit can feel. More so, perhaps, than a known, albeit awful, physical threat.
That's actually a really good point. What about a bigger example?
Think about the Twin Towers. Before 9/11, they were symbols of order, right? Commerce, structure, predictability, explored territory.
Definitely.
And then, in an instant, chaos. Total disruption. Not just physical destruction, but a deep psychological shock. The known world just fractured.
Yeah. And he uses Pinocchio, too.
Right. Pinocchio's journey to the bottom of the ocean to save his father. He's a puppet living this kind of fake, victimized existence. He has to go into the darkness, into the chaos, confront the whale, the unknown, to become real. It's that necessary trip through chaos to find genuine being.
So putting this all together, what's the takeaway? Where should we aim to be?
Well, the Taoist path, as Peterson sees it, isn't about choosing one over the other. It exists on the border between the twin serpents.
On the edge.
Exactly. Meaning is found when we straddle that fundamental duality. You need the security of order, but you also need the growth, the possibility, the adventure that comes from engaging with chaos.
So you can't just hide in order or you become rigid.
Right, you stagnate.
And you can't just live in chaos or you dissolve.
Precisely. It's about that dynamic balance.
Yeah.
Actively navigating that border. That's where life happens, where meaning is forged.
It's like walking a tightrope.
In a way, yeah. And this idea echoes in other places too, like the Garden of Eden story, the serpent. That's chaos showing up.
The unknown popping up in paradise.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even the ultimate in safe spaces inevitably harbors a snake. Chaos is always there, ready to challenge us, but also potentially to push us to grow, to become more conscious. It's part of the deal.
Okay, that foundation of order and chaos is huge. Let's get into the rules themselves now, the practical stuff. Starting with rule 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Which, okay, sounds like advice your grandma would give you.
It does, but then he brings in lobsters.
Yeah, the lobsters. Explain that. It seems so random.
It's actually fascinating. Lobsters have been around for like 350 million years, and they have these dominance hierarchies.
Okay, like alpha lobsters.
Pretty much. When they fight over territory, the winner's brain chemistry changes. They get more serotonin, less octopamine. They puff themselves up, look bigger, more confident.
And the loser.
The opposite. Less serotonin, more octopamine. They sort of shrink down, become more cautious, less likely to fight again. It's a direct physiological response.
Wow. Okay, so how does that connect to humans standing up straight?
Well, Peterson draws this direct parallel. He points out that people who perceive themselves as low status or low-ranking human beings also tend to have lower serotonin levels.
And that leads
to things like decreased confidence, being more reactive to stress, feeling more pain and anxiety, even potentially a shorter lifespan. It's not just psychological, it's biological. It echoes that ancient lobster wiring.
So there's this deep unconscious part of us tracking our social position.
Exactly. He calls it an unspeakably primordial calculator deep within you. It's constantly monitoring where you stand and adjusting your neurochemistry accordingly. If it thinks you're at the bottom, it basically puts you on high alert, expecting emergencies.
Which is exhausting and bad for you long term.
Very. It burns through resources, wears you down.
So how do we use this? Can we trick the calculator?
That's the key insight. Yes, you can influence it through positive feedback loops. If your body language signals status, your brain chemistry can actually change.
So faking it till you make it, kind of.
In a biological sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Just consciously changing your posture, standing tall, shoulders back, isn't just for show. It sends a signal inwards to that ancient system.
Telling your own brain, hey, things are okay, I'm competent.
Exactly. It's telling yourself and the world that you're ready to face things. And that can kickstart a virtuous cycle, making you actually feel and likely become more capable. It's a surprisingly profound biological hack.
Okay, that's powerful. Let's move to another rule that tackles a really common struggle.
Yeah.
Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today.
Yeah, it's the comparison trap. We all fall into it.
Totally. That inner critic is relentless, isn't it? Always pointing out how much better someone else is doing, how inadequate we are. How do you even start making changes when that voice is constantly dragging you down?
It's a huge hurdle. Peterson's advice here is actually quite gentle. He suggests negotiating with yourself, almost playfully.
Negotiating? How?
Instead of yelling at yourself to do better, try approaching that resistant part like, excuse me, hey, I'm wondering if there's maybe just one small thing you'd be willing to do. I'd really appreciate it.
Huh. Like you're trying to coax a reluctant employee.
Kind of. It's about being kind, patient, understanding that part of you is maybe scared or overwhelmed. It's shifting from harsh judgment to gentle encouragement.
I like that. So practically, how does that translate into action?
The key is aim small, really small. Don't try to fix everything at once. Set a tiny, achievable goal. Like his example, by the end of the day, I want things in my life to be a tiny bit better than they were this morning. Just a tiny bit.
Okay, super specific and manageable.
Right. And then ask, what could I do that I would do? Find the path of least resistance for that small positive step. And this is important. What small thing would I like as a reward?
Like the damn coffee he mentions.
Exactly. Rewarding yourself for that small effort reinforces the behavior. It builds momentum. It's not about willpower alone. It's about building positive habits through reinforcement.
And the idea is that these tiny improvements add up over time.
Hugely. He talks about the magic of compound interest. Those small daily wins might seem insignificant, but day after day, week after week, they accumulate. He suggests your life could be entirely different in just 3 years. It's the power of consistent, incremental progress.
That's incredibly hopeful, actually.
It is, and it connects to another really fascinating idea he explores. What you aim at determines what you see.
Okay, unpack that. How does our aim affect our perception?
He often brings up the work of Daniel Simons, a cognitive psychologist who studied sustained inattentional blindness.
Inattentional blindness, like not seeing things that are right there.
Exactly. Simons did studies, like one where people watched a video, and slowly a big road faded into view, taking up a third of the screen.
And people missed it.
A surprising number did, because their attention was focused elsewhere, maybe on the wheat field initially shown.
Wow. And the gorilla video. That's his too.
That's the classic one. People count basketball passes, and half of them completely miss a guy in a gorilla suit walking through the middle of the game.
It sounds impossible, but it happens.
It does. Or the study where the person behind the counter changes different gender, different race, and people talking to them often don't even notice.
So why?
Yeah.
Why are we so blind?
Peterson's take is simple. Vision is expensive. Our brains can't possibly process all the information flooding in, so we have to filter. We have to choose what to focus on based on our goals, our aims.
So our aims literally create filters for reality.
Pretty much. We see what's relevant to our current goals and ignore almost everything else. This idea isn't new either. He connects it to ancient Vedic concepts like Maya, illusion.
The idea that the world we perceive isn't the whole truth.
Right, that we're often blinded by their desires or by our aims. If your aim is distorted by resentment, fear, whatever your perception of reality will be distorted too, you won't see opportunities or truths that don't fit your narrative.
So the actionable insight is change your aim.
Fundamentally, yes. By consciously examining and retooling your aim, by scouring your psyche, as he puts it, cleaning the damn thing up, you change what you're capable of perceiving.
So aiming higher, aiming better, lets you see more.
Exactly. The more your conception of the best has been elevated, the more possibility and benefit you could perceive. Aiming at truth, at growth, literally opens your eyes to a richer, more accurate world.
Okay, this leads naturally to Rule 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. This feels like a direct consequence of focusing on yourself first.
It absolutely is. For Peterson, this isn't just about, cleaning your room, though that's part of the metaphor. It's his firm belief that the best way to fix the world is to fix yourself.
Why is that the best way? Why not focus on the big problems out there?
Because, he argues, focusing only on external criticism is often a way to avoid personal responsibility. It's much easier, much more comfortable to point fingers at society's flaws than to do the hard, messy work of confronting your own flaws, your own internal
The
chaos.
beam in your own eye sort of thing?
Precisely. It can be a distraction, an excuse for not dealing with your own stuff.
So the actionable insight is intensely personal.
Deeply. It's a call to, as he puts it, consider the murderousness of your own spirit before you dare accuse others.
Whoa, that's strong language.
It is. He doesn't mean literally, of course. It's a metaphor for acknowledging your own capacity for resentment, bitterness, cruelty, deceit, the darker stuff we often project onto others.
And just stop deceiving yourself.
Yes, to stop filling your head with lies and stop distorting your experience with inauthentic actions. Face your own shortcomings, honestly. The reward. A simpler life. Less bitterness. More resilience to face life's actual tragedies without collapsing into resentment or destructive anger. It's about building genuine inner strength and integrity.
That theme of honesty, both with ourselves and others, is central. Let's dive into Rule 8. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. This seems to have been a huge personal turning point for Peterson.
It really was. He talks about this realization he had that almost everything I said was untrue. Not necessarily big, deliberate lies, but driven by motives like wanting to win arguments, gain status, or just avoid conflict.
Small dishonesties, maybe. White lies. Things we do to smooth things over.
Exactly. But he realized how corrosive that pervasive inauthenticity was. It fundamentally changed how he approached things.
He mentions his clinical work here too, right? With difficult clients.
Yes, particularly a client he describes as paranoid and dangerous. People experiencing paranoia, he found, have this almost uncanny ability to sniff out any falsehood, any mixed motive, any hint of judgment.
So you couldn't fake it with him.
Not at all.
Yeah.
To build any trust, any therapeutic connection, he had to listen very carefully and tell the truth. Absolutely straight. Any deviation, and the relationship was instantly destroyed. It was a harsh but crucial lesson in the power of pure honesty.
And this story about his landlord, the ex-biker.
Ah, Dennis. Yeah, that's a great anecdote. This guy was often heavily intoxicated, prone to violence, and kept trying to sell Peterson stuff, presumably for booze money.
Awkward situation.
Very. And eventually, Peterson, prompted by his wife, had to say no. But instead of making up an excuse, he just told Dennis the truth. Look, your late-night visits are making my wife uncomfortable.
How did Dennis react?
Amazingly well, apparently. He absorbed it, he stopped trying to sell him things, and Peterson says their relationship actually became more solid after that. The direct, truthful, respectful communication worked where manipulation or evasion wouldn't have.
It really shows the difference, doesn't it, between just taking the easy way out with a lie.
And committing to telling the truth. Peterson says they're utterly different ways of existing. One manipulates reality for short-term gain, damaging integrity. The other engages reality honestly, building trust and strength long-term.
He also warns about something called the life lie, or the sin of omission. What's that?
It's not just about actively saying false things. It's about passively letting bad things happen when you know better, when you could intervene or speak up, but choose not to, usually out of fear or convenience.
So seeing something wrong and staying silent.
Exactly. He argues that can be just as damaging morally and psychologically as actively doing wrong. It's a betrayal of your own knowledge, your own perception of reality.
And this leads to being inauthentic.
Yes, the inauthentic person is someone who keeps acting and perceiving in ways they know are false based on their own experience. They live this internal contradiction.
And that builds resentment.
Profound resentment.
Yes.
Because you're constantly betraying yourself. And that resentment, festering inside, can turn outward. It can lead to thinking others must be hurt or they must be destroyed. It's the psychological root of bitterness and aggression.
Wow. He connects this to Solzhenitsyn, too, in the Soviet Union.
Right. Solzhenitsyn wrote about how Soviet citizens routinely had to falsify their own experiences just to survive under that regime. Peterson uses this terrifying example to argue that widespread societal lying leads to hell. Individual dishonesty, practiced collectively, can prop up monstrous systems.
A really stark warning.
It is. So the actionable insight is about the incredible transforming power of your honest word. When you commit to telling the truth, Peterson says, your values transform as you progress.
How so?
Because it forces you to confront reality. It means being willing to admit your current goals or beliefs might be wrong, allowing your current ambition to be an error. It opens you up to finding better, truer goals as you learn and experience more. It's an ongoing process of growth and refinement, not being stuck in a false story.
That makes perfect sense. And it ties beautifully into the next rule, Rule 9. Assume the person you are listening to might know something that you don't. This feels like the flip side of telling the truth, listening for it.
Absolutely. It's presented as a critical skill, not just for politeness, but for actual learning, for connection, for expanding your own world. It requires genuine humility.
But it's hard, isn't it? Really listening.
Oh, incredibly hard. Peterson quotes Carl Rogers here. The great majority of us cannot listen because listening is too dangerous.
Dangerous. Why dangerous?
Because true listening means you might have to change your mind. You might hear something that challenges your deeply held beliefs, your identity. And that feels threatening, destabilizing. It takes courage to be open to that.
And Peterson says even thinking itself is a dialogue.
Yeah, he describes true thinking as an internal dialogue between two or more different views. To do that effectively, you need to be both an articulate speaker and a careful, judicious listener, even to your own thoughts, but especially to others.
But most conversations aren't like that, are they?
Sadly, no. He points out common pitfalls, like dominance hierarchy maneuvers, people just trying to one-up each other, jockeying for position. That just leads to awkwardness.
Oh, and no one's really listening.
Right. Both people are just waiting for their turn to talk, planning their next sentence. The connection just dies. The whole conversational train comes to a shuddering halt.
We've all been in those. And the debates where someone just wants to win.
Oh, yeah. Using selective evidence, trying to impress the listeners. You see it constantly in politics, economics debates. It's about victory, not understanding.
So what's the alternative? The ideal?
He calls them conversations of mutual exploration, where people are genuinely engaged with the ideas, they're living them, existentially involved. And crucially, they've kind of flipped the usual preference for safety order over the unknown chaos. They're open to being changed by the conversation.
So the goal isn't to win, but to learn.
Exactly. The actionable insight is deeply respect the personal experience of your conversational partners. Assume they have reasons for their views, they've thought things through, reached careful, thoughtful, genuine conclusions, even if you disagree fiercely. Approach it thinking, what can I learn here? It's about seeking truth together, not proving yourself right.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, but still in that realm of relationships and how we interact. Rule 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. This one sounds a bit provocative.
It does, doesn't it? It can sound harsh. But the reasoning behind it is quite profound, focusing on the long-term well-being of both the child and the parent.
How does he illustrate that?
He uses this example of hated arithmetic. Imagine a parent spending 45 minutes every single day fighting with their kid about bedtime.
Sounds exhausting.
Totally. But then he does the math. Over a year, that's like a month and a half of standard 40-hour work weeks spent just on that one recurring conflict.
Wow. That's a lot of time and negative energy.
Exactly. These small, unchecked issues escalate. They drain resources. Often, he argues, because clear, loving boundaries weren't set early on.
So it challenges that idea that kids are just naturally good, the noble savage.
Very much so. Peterson is quite blunt. Children are much more complex than dogs, and they absolutely need guidance. They're much more likely to go complexly astray if they are not trained, disciplined, and properly encouraged. They don't automatically know how to behave or regulate themselves.
That anecdote about the toddler staring him down on the monkey bars, stepping on his hands, It's chilling.
It is, because that 2-year-old had apparently already concluded that adults were contemptible, that they wouldn't enforce boundaries. It shows how quickly things can go wrong without proper socialization.
So discipline isn't about being mean, it's necessary.
It's crucial. He says the vital process of socialization prevents much harm and fosters good. Neglecting discipline, even out of a desire to be liked, actually damages by omission. It leaves kids unprepared for the world.
What about the example of the child refusing to eat?
Right. That led to sleep problems, stressed parents, this whole degenerating trajectory. Peterson intervened with permission and basically decided to enforce the rule.
Prepare for war, he says.
Huh. Yeah, metaphorically. It was a standoff. Took 30 minutes, which he jokes felt like a week to the child. But by being firm, consistent, and rewarding the positive behavior, a good boy when he ate, the cycle was broken. He warns parents not to be paralyzed by the fear that they will no longer be liked if they set limits. That fear hurts the child in the long run.
Okay, so how do you do it right? What are the principles?
Key principle: minimum necessary force. And first, limit the rules. Don't overwhelm with a million regulations. Apply Occam's razor focus on the essential rules for safety and social function.
Makes sense. Keep it simple.
Second, use the least force necessary to enforce those rules. He uses an analogy from English common law. You escalate your response reasonably, a warning first, then maybe more direct intervention, not 0 to 60 instantly.
So gentle but firm, and escalate only as needed.
Exactly. The goal is correction with minimal harm, but still effective.
What kind of rules does he suggest are fundamental?
Basic things, really. Do not bite, kick, or hit, except in self-defense. Do not torture and bully other children. Eat in a civilized and thankful manner. Learn to share. Pay attention when spoken to. Work as hard as you can at school. These aren't arbitrary. They're foundational for functioning in society.
And the alternative, if parents don't provide this structure.
This is where he's really stark. He says, you can discipline your children, or you can turn that responsibility over to the harsh, uncaring, judgmental world. And the world's punishment, when they inevitably transgress societal boundaries, will be far greater and draconian without the love or corrective intent of a parent.
Wow, so discipline is actually an act of love preparing them.
That's the argument. Clear rules make for secure children and calm, rational parents. It fosters social development and psychological maturity, and fundamentally, it helps build that internal order that is all that protects us from chaos, equipping them to navigate life effectively.
Okay, we're moving into some really deep territory now. The bigger questions of existence. Let's start with the profound power of sacrifice. This feels like a really ancient, almost primal idea.
It absolutely is. Peterson sees it as central to human progress, to the very development of meaning. He traces it way back to the earliest human stories.
Like Cain and Abel, Abraham.
Exactly. The core idea running through these ancient narratives is that you can achieve something better might be attained in the future by giving up something of value in the present. Delayed gratification.
Investing now for a future return.
Precisely. That fundamental insight, that ability to sacrifice the immediate for the long term, is arguably what lifted humanity out of just reacting to impulses and allowed for planning, cooperation, civilization. Think about saving seeds instead of eating them all.
He connects it to Adam's toil after leaving Eden, too.
Yeah, the idea that work effort, the ongoing creative endless toil, became necessary. Sacrifice isn't just a one-off thing, it's embedded in the structure of productive human life. It's how we build things, how we create value.
And how does this relate to trade and morality developing?
Well, imagine early hunters. A big kill means excess food. The radical idea isn't just eating it all, but saving a provisional notion of sacrifice.
Delaying gratification.
Right, then maybe sharing that surplus with others. Not just generosity, but the beginning of reciprocal exchange, building reputation, the social contract. Sharing now builds trust and potential future help later. Sacrifice enables cooperation.
Even Ben Franklin's advice about asking for favors fits here.
Yeah, Peterson brings that in. Asking for a small favor forces interaction, overcomes that initial fear of strangers, and sets up a dynamic of potential reciprocity, of trade. It builds a small bridge through a minor act of sacrifice, asking and giving, granting.
So the person who learns to delay gratification, share honestly, produce value?
Yeah.
That's the ideal.
That's Peterson's conclusion. The productive, truthful sharer is the prototype for the good citizen and the good man. This capacity for sacrifice, reciprocity, and truthfulness is the bedrock of a functioning society and a meaningful individual life.
What about ultimate sacrifice? He mentions Michelangelo's Pieta.
Right, that image of Mary holding the crucified Christ embodies this profound sense of ultimate loss, ultimate sacrifice, resonating with deep spiritual and human meaning. It pushes the concept to its limit.
And Socrates choosing death over compromising his principles.
Another powerful example. Socrates listened to his inner voice, his demon, which told him not to flee, not even to defend himself in a way that betrayed his philosophy. He accepted death as a potential blessing, sacrificing his life for what he believed was true, an ultimate commitment.
So we have the harsh realities of life, the need for sacrifice, but then there's something even darker he addresses, the problem of malevolence. Deliberate evil.
Yes. He argues that human cruelty, the conscious desire to inflict harm, is something even worse than just natural disasters or misfortune the world set hard against us. Because it's chosen, it adds another layer of horror.
He uses a clinical example here that's quite disturbing.
The client with PTSD, triggered just by the expression on her abusive boyfriend's face. Not the violence itself, but his fallen countenance, which she perceived as showing his clear and conscious desire to do her harm.
So it wasn't just anger, it was intentional malice.
That's how Peterson interprets it. The terror wasn't just physical threat, but the recognition of volitional, targeted cruelty, the intent behind the eyes.
And this connects to Solzhenitsyn's line about good and evil.
Cutting through the heart of every human being.
Right.
Malevolence isn't just out there in monsters. It's a potential within all of us. Facing that uncomfortable truth is crucial.
How does he suggest we face it? He uses the metaphor of Christ in the desert.
Yes, encountering Satan. He interprets that not just literally, but as a metaphor for taking personal responsibility for the full depth of human depravity, confronting the worst possibilities within human nature, including your own potential for darkness.
Why is that necessary?
Because without acknowledging that potential, without understanding what you're capable of, you can't truly choose the good. You can't develop genuine character or courage. You have to know the darkness to consciously turn towards the light. It's about integrating the shadow, not denying it.
So the actionable insight from all this sacrifice, suffering, malevolence is about finding meaning despite it all.
Exactly. Meaning emerges, he says, when impulses are regulated, organized, and unified. It means consciously aiming at the good and sacrificing everything to that ambition, choosing to do what is meaningful, not what is expedient even, and perhaps especially when things are incredibly difficult. It's the deliberate choice of a heroic orientation towards life.
Okay, let's look at Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. This sounds, again, maybe a bit specific or quirky.
It does seem that way initially, but it's really a gateway into discussing risk, competence, masculinity, and the dangers of overprotection in modern culture.
He actually admires the skateboarders.
Yeah, the kids pushing their limits, taking risks on handrails. He sees them as brave and competent, and he makes the key point. Danger was the point. They wanted to triumph over danger. They were seeking challenge to build skill.
But society often wants to eliminate all danger, right? Like removing playground equipment.
Exactly. He mentions Toronto doing that over panic about insurability. His argument is stark. Kids need reasonably dangerous environments. They need playgrounds dangerous enough to engage them, to learn about consequences, develop physical competence, and build courage. Making everything perfectly safe actually makes them fragile.
He calls this impulse to remove all risk an anti-human spirit.
He does. Insidious and profoundly anti-human. He illustrates it with the story of his friend Chris.
The one who kept getting beaten up.
Right. Chris absorbed this idea that fighting back was wrong, that masculinity itself was problematic. He ended up developing this deep hatred for masculinity, negating his own nature.
And that led to destructive behavior later.
Yeah, eventually vandalizing cars, feeling this resentment that their owners deserved whatever they got. It's a chilling example of how suppressing natural aggression or pathologizing competence and strength can lead to weakness, breeding a twisted kind of resentment and malevolence. Weakness can be dangerous too.
And this isn't just individual. He sees broader trends.
Yeah, he points to things like academic arguments against having children or the strong push for a purely social constructionist view of gender that often ignores biological realities.
What about the data he brings up?
Yeah.
Like in Scandinavia.
Right. He highlights studies showing that in highly egalitarian societies, where choices are supposedly freest, gender differences in career choices often become more pronounced, not less. Women tending towards people-oriented fields, men towards things-oriented fields. This challenges the idea that gender roles are purely social constructs.
And the issue with discouraging competition among boys.
He sees that as a major problem, leading to disengagement. He argues that boys often find motivation and prove competence through hierarchy and competition. Boys, however, can only win by winning in the male hierarchy, discouraging that natural drive can leave them adrift.
So aggression isn't just bad. It needs to be integrated.
That's the key. He argues aggression is not merely learned. It's innate, tied to deep brain structures. It's a powerful force that needs to be understood, channeled constructively, and integrated into a competent personality, not just suppressed or denied.
And boys need strong male role models.
Absolutely. Boys need tough, adventurous, competent men to emulate. And he adds, men toughen up by pushing themselves and by pushing each other. Facing challenges, including constructive conflict, builds resilience and character.
So the final actionable insight here is pretty stark.
It is. If you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of. His point is that society needs to strengthen and encourage people, help them become competent and resilient rather than protecting them to the point of weakness. Don't smother competence in the name of safety.
Which brings us finally to Rule 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. After all that intensity, this feels gentle, almost whimsical.
It does, but it's the capstone in a way. It opens the door talking about suffering, mortality, limitation, and finding moments of grace within it all.
The starting point is acknowledging suffering is universal.
Yes, it's in every major religious doctrine, every deep philosophy. Life involves suffering. We're all intrinsically fragile, subject to aging, loss, illness. It's just the reality of being limited mortal beings.
And he makes this incredibly real with stories about his own children, his son Julian's fevers.
Right. That led him to realize that what can truly be loved about a person is inseparable from their limitations. Trying to make Julian perfectly invulnerable would somehow destroy what made him him. Love embraces the fragility.
And his daughter Michaela's severe arthritis.
Yeah, years of chronic pain, joint replacements, unimaginable suffering right at the heart of his family. These aren't abstract ideas for him, they're lived realities that deeply inform his perspective on confronting hardship.
He brings in Dostoevsky again here, the tortured child.
Yes, Ivan's challenge to Alyosha. Would you torture one child to guarantee peace for everyone else? Alyosha says no. It highlights that some suffering is fundamentally unacceptable. It can't be justified by some greater good calculus. There are moral lines drawn by the reality of innocent suffering. So if suffering and limitation are unavoidable, what's the meaning in them? He uses that old Jewish story, the kohen.
About the omnipotent being.
Right.
What does such a being lack?
The answer, limitation. Without limits, there's no definition, no story, no being. Our limitations are what give us shape, what create the narrative of our lives.
Like the empty space in a pot giving it usefulness.
Exactly. It is not the clay, but the space within the shape. Our constraints, the boundaries we operate within, are what define our potential, our function, our very identity.
Even Superman needed limitations to be interesting.
Right. When he was infinitely powerful, he was boring, nothing specific. Giving him weaknesses, limitations like kryptonite made him a relatable hero again. Limits create the drama, the stakes, the story.
But how do we avoid just getting crushed by life's suffering? He mentions Dostoevsky's Underground Man.
Yeah, arguing that just hating life, despising life for its genuine pain only makes things worse. It doesn't alleviate suffering. It adds a layer of bitterness and resentment, blinding you to any good that might still exist.
So how did his family cope with Michaela's illness? What was the strategy?
It was about balance. They would consciously set aside some time to talk and think about the illness, to acknowledge the pain, give it space. But then, crucially, they would also deliberately set aside time for the other things in life that are important. Joy, duty, connection. Don't let the suffering swallow everything.
Like the 2-hour rule he sometimes suggests.
Exactly. Deal with the overwhelming problem for a set time, then consciously shift focus back to the immediate duties of life. Contain the chaos, acknowledge it, but don't let it completely derail you. Bring order to the internal storm.
So petting the cat, that's the actionable insight.
It is. It's about finding a small something beautiful, that simple present moment of connection, like petting a cat. It's a momentary release from the suffering that comes with being limited and mortal.
A tiny moment of grace.
Precisely. A tiny descent into the underworld, maybe, but one that offers a glimpse of the redemptive eternity found in simple being and appreciating the good that still exists, even amidst pain. It's a conscious choice to notice and engage with the small, present beauties of existence as an antidote to overwhelming hardship.
Wow. Okay, that was quite a journey. We've covered so much ground. From that fundamental dance of order and chaos.
To taking real personal responsibility, posture, comparison, truth.
Right. Navigating relationships through listening, through careful discipline.
And then diving into those huge questions of sacrifice, meaning, and confronting suffering and limitation head on.
It really does all seem to point back to that core message you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Peterson's conviction that the soul of the individual eternally hungers for the heroism of genuine being, and that choosing to take on that responsibility to face life honestly and courageously, that is the decision to live a meaningful life. The rules are just pathways towards that.
So as we wrap up, that final provocative thought he leaves us with, what will you write with your pen of light?
Powerful question.
It really is. It's not just about today or tomorrow, is it? It's about the whole story of your life. An invitation to define your purpose, act with intention, face the chaos, and try to manifest the good in your own way. What mark will you make?
It really encourages you to take these ideas personally. Think about them. How do they resonate with your life right now? Which rule jumps out? Is there one small thing, one tiny step you could actually take today, based on all this, to move towards a more meaningful path?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Turning insight into action.
Absolutely. The journey starts there.
Well, thank you for joining us on this really deep exploration. If you found this valuable, if you're looking for more insights like this to help you navigate the world, definitely subscribe to The Deep Dive.
We'll keep digging into complex ideas and trying to distill that practical wisdom.
We'll be back soon with another set of sources, another conversation. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep aiming for that meaningful path between order and chaos.